Vance, you can either do surgery or you can talk to patients.
Yeah.
Which is it going to be?
I feel like this world is run by women, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I think, there's nothing more powerful than a mother's love.
It can be really good for business.
Yes.
It can be good for obviously the patient,
Yes.
but it can be good for your program.
You got to make time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're doing everything or whether you're delegating, you got to make time.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Free Range Vision. I'm Matt Jensen alongside Dr. Vance Thompson. And for nearly 2 decades, we've been pioneering in practice, business, and team leadership. We'll cover everything from the pivotal lessons we've learned to the formidable challenges we've overcome and sometimes lost to, providing you with the essential tools to steer your journey and empower your team as you venture together. So whether you're at the helm of a practice or simply striving to cultivate a stronger culture, well, you found your flock. Let's venture off the beaten path together. Welcome to Free Range Vision.
Well, Vance, we're back with another session on Free Range Vision, and we're talking today about how to have conversations with patients. Now, it seems like this would be just a very basic thing, but a lot of providers and a lot of team members really struggle with this. How to approach patients when they have questions, how to approach them with education. The one I hear a lot is how to approach them with a recommendation.
Right.
And so today we're going to be talking about how we approach patients no matter where they are in the process. And I just want to get a little overview from you. How important is the patient communication the way you practice?
Well, I think it's number one, to tell you the truth. And here I absolutely love being an eye surgeon. But I've told people this before, that if you said you're going to a desert island, Vance, and you actually only get to do one of these two choices, educate patients or do surgery, I would do patient education. That's how much I love patient education. And believe me, I love to do eye surgery. But when you are able to use your words as you read your patient and you see their shoulders relax and that look of anxiety drift away, that without any words they're feeling, you can see it, that, well, there's a path and everything's going to be okay. That is an amazing sense of joy. And believe me, not all this is easy. Patient education is tough because sometimes you're in situations where there's fear and they don't understand what's going on. But patient education to me is where it all begins, with being a physician.
Now, I remember a story you told me when we first started working together, and it was from a mentor of yours. And you were just out of training. And one of the folks who had influence over you said, Vance, you can either do surgery or you can talk to patients.
Yeah.
Which is it going to be?
Right. And I said, just like if you ask me if I want red or white wine, I just say both. And I said to that, I'm going to be doing both because I really, my patient education is even happening in surgery because a lot of our anesthesia is very light. And so we're conversing and we're talking, and
the patient's with it.
Right. And so whether it's pre-op, intra-op, or post-op, to me, the communications aspect of it is what really, really brings me the most joy.
Well, and not only do you have to do the education, make the recommendation, build that confidence, but then you have to do it again and again, because we as patients, we hear jargon. We're preoccupied with maybe the cost. What else do I have to do that day that I'm coming in for surgery? How am I going to line up a driver? And all of this stuff is coming at us. We have to be told a few times.
Right.
I recall a quotation from a book we read together. And then, of course, we met with the book author, Greg Corneluk.
Yes.
And in his book, Physician Success Secrets, he says 50 to 80% of the information that's shared from the provider to the patient at the point of care is instantly forgotten.
Right.
And of the balance of information that is remembered,
Right.
only half of that is remembered correctly.
Right.
And that's a real indictment on I think the consuming patient, but also the providers. Like we have to communicate, when they come in, we have to communicate in written form, we have to communicate in informed consent, then with them verbally, then with their loved one. And hopefully by the time we do all that, there's a fighting chance they'll remember it with the ability to recall it later on.
And even better, not let it fatigue you.
Right. With energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Embrace the fact that you want them to be as educated as possible. So that means that through all the materials and all the methods you just talked about educating, whether it's 7 or 8 times, and then the 9th time, you ask them a question that is your touch point to figure out if they get it and they answer it wrong, you don't get frustrated.
Right.
You do it again.
You delight in doing it again.
And if post-operatively they're frustrated or concerned or worried about something that didn't meet their expectations, even though you talked about it a lot before surgery, you talk about it again. And that delicate dance of, completely and as, deeply as possible, educating people, repetition is key.
Just as a segue for a second, I want to talk about the importance of a loved one being in the room, because this has been something you've taught me over the years, and it's so valuable to when a patient's calling in, and a lot of times we're going to dilate that patient's eyes.
Right.
And we can talk about, we'll give you sunglasses
Right.
and, but really encourage them to bring their loved one.
Right.
It's so powerful because that loved one will hear things that the patient didn't hear. So recall will be better. And then, all the several times that you explain it, there's a better chance every time.
Right.
But then they also, might advocate for that patient. In the world of advanced technology lenses for cataract surgery, a lot of times the patient will say, I don't know if I could afford that. And their loved one will say, you are always complaining about your vision. You should totally do this. You don't do nice things for yourself.
Right.
And they'll advocate for them. Or they'll say, you're always asking me to find your reading glasses,
Yeah.
So they'll do it.
Or where I find, so I feel like this world is run by women, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I think, there's nothing more powerful than a mother's love. Okay. I think that's why we call it Mother Earth. And I'm fascinated by that. And I, built my practice with the idea of if I can have the trust of a mother for me to work on their child, the highest standard there is, because they are so protective, I'm going to be okay. And so, but what you find on the flip side is when the mother becomes the patient, they are so used to giving to everybody else that I don't know if I should spend that money on me.
Right.
And so having that loved one there with them, whether it's their husband, their, loved one, their sister, their child, to have someone there that understands what mom loves to do. And if mom loves to do a lot without glasses, say, Mom, you're always giving to all of us. This is your turn. So you're so right, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, that's the power of having that extra set of ears, but also it can be really good for business.
Yes.
It can be good for obviously the patient.
Yes.
But it can be good for your program too. So I just wanted to veer off and talk about that for 1 second, but I'm going to stay off road just for one more point, because you talked about the power of women in consumerism and in healthcare and helping make decisions in the household. And I want to substantiate it because it's more than a feeling. Faith Popcorn, which is a name that's fun to remember, she wrote a book called Evolution, and it was in the early 2000s. But she was talking about how, and I don't remember the statistics, how the majority of consumer decisions made by a household are driven by the woman in that household.
Right.
And so you're precisely right, Vance, that if you want to figure out how to cater to an entire family,
right,
that's the best spokesperson. That is where families are run.
Right.
Is right there. So, so your feelings were good about your Mother Earth comment. I want to talk about the other piece of patient communication, In one of our earlier podcasts, we talked about practice development. And in a future podcast, we're going to talk about the importance of marketing.
Right.
And part of that is patient education, but part of that is also advertising. And I remember early on, you said to me, there's a lot of things that you've said, by the way, over the years that have kind of stuck with me. And this is one of them, that marketing is the beginning of informed consent,
Yes.
right? And so, patients are coming to you having just seen your ads, right?
Right.
Having come in maybe with a referral from a primary eye care provider, and now you're communicating with them.
Right.
So important that that's your mentality, that you feel like even the paid media you've put out there is to educate them about the benefits and risks
Right.
of an offering. Talk to
Right.
me about the importance of that marketing being part of informed consent.
Well, it's all about expectations. And so if you market in a way that you're giving the impression that it's going to do more for them than it can, you're starting the patient off on a potentially troubling journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I like to do in marketing is, yes, it's okay to talk about the life benefits because there are some beautiful life benefits. It's okay to talk about educating yourself
Mm-hmm.
so that you're making an informed decision, but it's not okay to overpromise. And so that's how I like to look at marketing, because I think marketing is so important, especially if you have a great product. I remember when I first came to town, and I was seeing someone who, in second opinion, had problems in another city with their surgery. And I was able to take care of them, and they ended up in a good place. And they say, you ever thought about marketing? Because if I would have heard about you, I would have probably come to you.
Hmm.
And that's when I realized I have a certain responsibility to have people, understand what I do and how I do it and my philosophy.
And how it's different.
And especially if I believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started marketing.
Yeah, that's a really powerful story, and I'm sure we'll get into that in more detail in our next session. Talk to me about the patients, your mode of communication with patients when they are fearful about a potential outcome.
Right. So I think that, in the beginning of my career, where I was doing, everything,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes taking a history and, going through, past medical history and medications and allergies and checking vision and, doing their refraction and checking their pupils and going on down the line, and then doing, the pre-dilation exam and then the post-dilation exam and doing that for other patients. And oh, by the way, in the meantime, educating them. I felt like I was doing a good job, but once my practice started getting so busy that I started to dream of and hire extenders, whether it
Mm-hmm.
was technicians, nurses, optometrists, to work with me so that I could delegate a lot of that, even though I'm going to make sure every one of the points that, were done for the patient for me to analyze, that I'm going to analyze them to make a good recommendation to the patient. I was amazed that my patient education went to another level when I felt even less hurried. That a lot of that delegation led to more inner peace for me,
Better communication.
and better communication and more time and just a better atmosphere for me and the patient. And so I think number one is you got to make time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're doing everything or whether you're delegating, you got to make time, because one of the most important and most intimate things that a person can let you do is surgery on their eye.
Mm-hmm.
and you need to connect. And I remember one time I walked into a room and this guy turned out to be a neat guy, but it doesn't start out as a neat story because he kept looking up at the corner of the room, which was away from me, and would not connect with me.
Hmm.
And I'm a pretty nice guy. I tried my very best to connect with him. And finally, I just said, "Sir, I can't operate on you." And he took his eyes from the corner and looked me in the eye and goes, "Why?" I said, "For one, I don't even know if your vision's bugging you. And I don't know if you're hearing or understanding these risks and these benefits that
Yeah.
I need to talk with you about. But I don't care how many tens of thousands of surgeries I've done. I get mental about this too. I need to feel a connection. I'm not just a mechanic going in there to do your surgery. We are going in there together, and I want to do an amazing job for you." And then he chose to connect with me.
Yeah.
But I think that that's an important part of patient education is you need to connect. It can't just be a sterile process. And so making the time and connecting and then being able to read their body language and are they getting it?
Are they with you?
Are they with me? Is really important because, then I know which roads I need to go down, which ones I don't. Because remember, I've already set it up that the materials they got at home, the web experience they had, what they read even waiting for me in the front atrium, the fact they've talked with my technician and my nurse and my
Mhm.
optometrist, there's already a lot of repetition. And I've got my touch points to make sure that, they're getting it. And then I know where I can focus to help them ultimately with a recommendation.
So, Vance, you said something really powerful there that I think every provider should think about saying or at least believing about their patient interactions. Listen, we're going in there together.
Yes.
So you have to understand, right?
Yes.
You need to understand and feel good about things, but I do too.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really powerful,
Yep.
where people can maybe get into a rote way of performing their work. But if they imagine themselves going into the OR together, they might rethink how they approach that. I want to talk about the recommendation
Yep.
because a lot of practices and doctors that we've talked to over the years feel like they don't want to sell, right? And that's what I always hear. "Oh, I hate selling." Um, I don't want them to feel like I'm, making too much on this or things like that. And so they'll give options. You're a 4 diopter myope. You could have PRK, or you could have laser vision correction. You might be a good candidate for SMILE, or you might be a good candidate for a phakic implant. What do you think? And the
Yep.
patient's kind of left to wonder, am I making this decision? Are you helping me with this decision? How should this go? How important is the recommendation from the provider?
So this is one of the most important things we can talk about because, to me, the ultimate decision is obviously the patient's.
Mhm.
And that's one thing. But to not make a recommendation uh, as a as a physician, as a surgeon, is really, you know, just not fulfilling our duty. So my job as a doctor is to get to know you as a patient.
Mhm.
That means everything about your situation with regards to my diagnostics and with regards to your medical record, but also about your occupation, your hobbies, your hopes, your dreams. And then there's a couple recommendations that I like to give. I like to give if I had everything you have, but knowing what I want, this is what I would do.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, in advanced cataract surgery, I would do the best of the best implants because I value my vision and my freedom that much. Here I was born without needing glasses. When I get done with this surgery, I want to not need glasses. So I
Mhm.
know for me, it's worth the investment. But the other recommendation that I like to do is take everything that I've learned about you, combined with what, your hopes and dreams are. And if you say, I actually don't mind being dependent on glasses after this. I like glasses and I want this to be, as low of a hassle as possible and this and that. And so now I'm taking your situation and what your hopes and dreams, and here's what I would do if I were you.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I would do if, I had your situation, it was me. Here's what I would do if I had your situation, if it was you, really helps the patient understand what I would do if it was me, what I'm willing to do if you want something different. And then, of course, what I'm not willing to do because it's not in your best interest.
Yeah.
And so I'm very comfortable giving a recommendation.
Yeah. And I've heard you say things also like, you talked about if I was you, if it was me, but then you also position it as, I'll tell you what I would do if you were, tell you what I would recommend if you were my sister.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of come alongside them and say, it does, it costs more money and it's
Right.
expensive.
Right.
But based on your lifestyle and based on how you said you want your vision to be afterwards, this is my recommendation.
Right.
And I think that's really, an important step to make as a provider. The way that I've kind of set it before in role-playing situations is that it's really kind of a two-step process. We're going to diagnose and then we're going to recommend. So it's maybe as simple as, listen, we did find out today that you do, like your referring provider said, you do have a cataract.
Right.
So as long as you're ready to consider surgery, we can make your vision better.
Right.
Based on that, and based on how you said you want your vision to be after surgery, my recommendation is X.
Right.
Whoa. That's way too much money. Well, no problem.
Right.
That's just based on how you said you wanted to see. There's other options.
Right.
Traditional implant surgery is half of what I do.
Right.
So it's still good.
Right. Well, and for me, back to the, what would I, if, I want to treat people like their family.
Right.
And so I remember one time I said to a guy, if you were my brother, this is what I would do. And he said, do you love your brother? And
that's so good.
I said, I love my brother with my whole heart. And so now I just say that.
Yeah.
If you were my sister and I love my sister,
Mm-hmm.
I would do this.
Yeah.
And because it is a serious situation, and brothers
Yeah.
and sisters are getting
Well, and you don't shy away from an
longer.
opportunity to say how much you love your brother and sister
Yeah.
either. Everybody knows that. So no, that's really good. All of this are just some elements within the importance of patient communication. Maybe just challenge people with the way you communicate after surgery. You just headed home after a busy day of surgery. A lot of people are seeing better. You replaced a lot of diopters that
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, so I used to call everybody. And then when I started learning how to text, since that was a transition in my journey, early in the 90s, we weren't texting.
Right.
I called everybody. And then as we got into this century and I'd call some of these, 21-year-olds and they'd say, hello, if they picked up.
Right.
And they, would almost act like, I was interrupting.
Why is someone calling me?
Why,
right now? Yeah.
why, yeah, why? And so then, my kids are texting me. So then I'd text this patient and, the same type of person that would have been the hello, we're like, oh, wow, thank you so much for writing me. And this is, I'm doing wonderful. And my experience, I mean, it was just like, just so
They came alive.
they came alive through the text. So then I started texting the younger ones and then calling the older ones. And it only, now the older ones go, hello. And so now I just text everybody
Yeah.
and then call, if someone, if it seems like they need a call.
Yeah. What do you say? What do you say on their day of surgery?
Well, I say, this is Dr. Vance Thompson, and everything went just beautiful today. I thought I'd just check on you. Are you doing okay? Don't worry about blur, but let me know if you're having any concerns. And thank you for your trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it is some of the richest messages that I get back in return to that message. And sometimes they'll even say, this isn't Dr. Thompson. Yeah. And then I call them because it's so fun to, but again, when you really care, that's easy to do.
Yeah. I mean, just like we were talking about in a previous podcast about, stopping by each booth at the ASCRS meeting and saying thank you. This is the way we're raised by our parents, is to be good neighbors and friends and to look in on each other and appreciate one another. But for some reason, as we grow older, it feels less convenient, and it does. It takes time. That's a big commitment on every one of your surgery days.
Right.
And over the years, that's a lot of texts you've sent.
Right.
But it's really good.
Right.
It's really good for that patient to have that peace of mind, that assurance, a big accomplishment that they had that day and having new vision correction. But I'll bet it makes you feel good.
It really makes me feel good. And it reminds me of a story, talking with a fellow surgeon who is just a star at what we do, someone I would trust to work on my own eyes, that was, working in a city far, far away. And this person said, Vance, I'm afraid I'm burning out.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, are you operating on eyes or are you operating on people? And they said, I'm afraid that I'm now operating on eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to go back to operating on people. And, as a physician, and really in any profession.
That's right.
That what the mechanics of what you do are not what's going to fill that spot in you that brings you joy. It's not going to be what warms your heart and mind. It's going to be, working on people who have loved ones, and that there's this domino effect of how you're influencing their life for the rest of their life. And so, it really helps to remember that we're working on people.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Vance. There's so many analogies where that comes true as I think about it in my own life, professionally, but also personally. Things can become rote.
Yeah.
And then it can become mechanical, so to speak.
Well, exactly. Like even the person that changes my tires.
Right.
You're not just a mechanic. You are keeping my family safe.
Mm-hmm.
You're keeping the roads safe. You're making this world a better place through your expertise of working on these tires.
I just recently read a story about a store owner, manager of a Chick-fil-A franchise, whose customer, you see how quickly I fall into healthcare, whose customer had a flat tire outside the Chick-fil-A. And, they went right out in front of their team and helped that person change their tire, got them on their way, and came back in, and all of the staff were just kind of wide-eyed. Like,
yes.
Whoa, that's one, they're a lot of teenagers, so they're like, whoa, how'd you do that?
Right.
but more importantly, they were like, that felt really above and beyond.
Right.
And the store owner was just very basic about it. Just said, well, they needed help.
Right.
I mean, we happen to sell chicken, but people come here because.
No, I mean, that's just beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that when we look at our roles like that, it can really bring back a lot of the passion that we have for what we do. So thanks for sharing those stories.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Vance, it's been great to talk about this and patient communication as part of today's discussion. I look forward to our future ones, buddy. I love these conversations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man.